The National Institute for Communicable Diseases, that's the NICD, says it's monitoring the spread of monkeypox. There are no reported cases in South Africa yet. The virus has now been identified in 15 non-endemic countries. It's spreading in Europe, Australia, and North America. The virus is not usually spread easily between people, but in the UK, health officials are now advising that high-risk contacts should self-isolate for 3 weeks. For more on this development and others coming out of the UK, I'm joined now by our correspondent in London, Olly Barratt. Olly, good afternoon, and thank you very much for your time. Just give us the latest on what the UK is doing in managing the monkeypox spread.
Yeah, well, the UK is really saying to people that if they are a direct, close or household contact of someone who has caught monkeypox, then they should isolate for 21 days. The UK Health Security Agency saying that that guidance means that people should also supply their details for contact tracing. They should forego travel. They should avoid contact as well with any immunosuppressed people. They should avoid contact with pregnant women and children under 12 as well. So the UK is really putting out that guidance, and also it's using a smallpox vaccine for limited numbers of people who they believe will have had direct contact with someone who's tested positive for monkeypox. We're only talking about a small number of cases at the moment, but that number is growing, and health officials here believe that it will grow further over the course of this week. 20 cases confirmed so far in the UK. Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, has just been speaking about it. He says it's a very rare disease. He says so far the consequences don't seem to be very serious, but he says it's important we keep an eye on it. And the other thing that we are hearing from officials is that idea that we shouldn't really be panicking at this point, that it is something to keep an eye on. It is something to try and break the transmission chain of. But you can imagine, given some of the words we're talking about, just the very mention of self-isolation brings back all sorts of memories of COVID-19. And so the government is also trying to get the message out pretty clearly that it doesn't believe this is something on that scale at all, but certainly something to keep an eye on, and certainly something that the UK health agencies can respond to.
Yeah, just if you're able to do so, Olly, who's being affected? I mean, these cases that are being reported in the UK, is it children mostly? Is it young people, people who've travelled? What do we know about these cases, if anything at all?
Well, one of the things that is interesting about the cases that we're seeing in the UK is that the vast majority of them are not connected with each other, which means that officials believe that there is community transmission going on. They also believe that transmission is likely to be taking place between people who are sexually active. They also believe that some of the early cases that have been found in the UK do seem to have a higher proportion than in the general population that relate to people who are gay or bisexual. Particularly males, and so that is one of the things that clearly officials are going to be continuing to keep an eye on, to try and work out exactly how transmission is taking place. And that's one of the things also that has surprised officials who are trying to work out exactly what's happening here, is that, as I say, these are cases mostly that are unconnected and don't seem to be connected to international travel either. So something is slightly different from what we would normally expect to see when it comes to monkeypox. And as I say, officials advising people to forego travel if they are found to be a close contact of someone who has monkeypox, because they clearly also want to stop it travelling across further international borders and spreading elsewhere as well. As I say, trying to break those chains of transmission if possible.
Yeah, I just saw a headline, and you've mentioned it, in terms of smallpox vaccine can be used to deal with monkeypox, but also antiviral kind of treatment. Is that being dished out now in the UK? Do you know, Olly?
Yes, so the vaccine is going to be used for people who are contacts, and there are other treatments as well. And that also takes us back to another key point here, which is that UK officials, in telling us what they're using to respond to this outbreak, are also making it clear that for most people the symptoms will be very mild indeed. And Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, when he was asked about monkeypox earlier today, not only did he make those points about taking this seriously but not being overly concerned, he also was at pains to point point out that there have been no fatalities at all yet as a result of this outbreak here in the UK. Certainly, I think UK health officials believe that that is likely to remain the case, but clearly they're exercising caution and using those treatments wherever they feel appropriate.
Okay, Olly, while I've got you, before I let you go, I need to ask you just for the benefit of your viewers about this Sue Gray report supposed to be coming out any time in terms of that investigation. What can you tell us about that?
Yes, this is the report into so-called Partygate, those events and gatherings in and around Downing Street over the periods of COVID-19 lockdown that the police believe did break the rules, did break the laws that the government had been setting. 126 fines have been handed out by police. One of those has gone to Boris Johnson, the UK Prime Minister, but the police investigation is now closed, and so we're now waiting, as you say, for that final report from the civil servant Sue Gray. She's expected to be critical about the working culture in and around Downing Street. We also expect that she will include the names of some senior officials that she believes should have behaved in a different way, and potentially photographs too. So that's one of the things that we're all now very much looking out for. When Sue Gray reports later this week, will we see pictures of Boris Johnson in compromising situations in Downing Street during periods of lockdown? And therefore, flowing from that would be the questions about his political future. It doesn't seem at this stage like his own MPs are minded to carry out some kind of coup and remove him. But if the Sue Gray report is particularly damning, that could change quite quickly.
Okay, we'll find out later this week. Thank you very much, Olly Barratt, our correspondent there from London. Now, as you've heard from Olly Barratt just before, I asked you there about the Sue Grant report. We're speaking about monkeypox and what the UK authorities, health authorities are doing about it. But it's also caught the attention of the US President Joe Biden. He says people should be on guard against this disease.